Good morning, everyone. First of all, a warm welcome to all of our friends from sister parties across Europe, from the European People's Party, and especially you members of the youth of the EPP, and a warm welcome to President Lidia Pereira, who has been re-elected for her second mandate. Is it third? Third already. So young and 3 times president of the youth of the EPP. Congratulations, and also a warm welcome to Max Šimrak and his team for having so diligently organized this meeting, another meeting in Zagreb. It's actually the 3rd time during this month that I speak in front of the youth members of the Croatian Democratic Union, but this time in the enlarged format. And warm welcome to our ministers, Minister of Culture, Minister of Tourism and Sports, our 3 MEPs, Karlo, Željana and Sunčana, as well as the members of the Croatian Parliament, Marko and Marijana and Krešimir, and also greetings to my team, State Secretaries, and very pleased that Teja Jerković is a member of the presidency of the Youth EPP. That means that the PHDZ has a continuous presence in the highest bodies of YEPP, just as well as we have since the Rotterdam Congress, Dubravka Šuica as a member of the presidency of the EPP. Since the concept of my presence here this morning is divided in 2 stages, one that I address you with few points from the stage and then we continue discussion, I would like to say just several important messages. First, I think that the role of the youth in our party is essential across Europe. I think you are the mobilizers of the new voters and of the future voters, and in the new altered technological and communication context, I think you are the key to unlock the young electorate that will give confidence to the policies of the EPP, PHDZ in Croatia, but also to our sister parties in Europe, because the democratic process has been so much impacted by the incredibly fast technological changes that you, who are basically living these changes and are the movers and shakers of these changes that will have a tremendous political impact, should play a leading role, much more robust, but I would say far more efficient than your older colleagues. And that's why I think we should all adapt to this changing rules of politics globally. My second message is that we, as the strongest European political family, should first of all remain strong and the strongest after the European elections and the series of national elections that are upcoming, whether globally or in Europe. 2024 is a year when we will have the Russian presidential elections in March, European elections in June, American presidential elections in November. Croatia will also pass through the electoral process and a number of other countries. So I think this will be, in terms of standing for our values, standing for our policies, representing what we have done so far to our publics and to our voters, will be critically important. Where is Europe today? And I will say a few words where Croatia fits in this context. First of all, these last 5 years of the mandate of the Commission and the European Parliament have been completely different than what they were supposed to be originally in 2019. If you remember the electoral manifestos, when you remember the program of the Commission, when you remember the key topics of 2019, basically everything was green and digital. If you look back, those were the 2 topics we were all discussing, addressing, trying to put it across our policy areas. What has happened with the pandemic of 2019, what has afterwards happened with Russia's brutal aggression against Ukraine, has changed this agenda. The agenda came first regarding the health challenges, regarding the medical equipment, protective equipment, production of vaccines, restrictive measures, impact on our economies, on our way of life. We all were faced for the first time with such a crisis management that none of the leaders nor the administrations actually ever dreamt of. And Croatia had the luck to be in the seat of the Council presidency in the first 6 months of 2020, and I have to admit that the first three months were okay and everything else was a VTC. And unfortunately, we didn't manage to present everything that we wanted to do in the way that would have been normally conducted. But still, we initiated important crisis management procedures at the EU level, and together with other institutions, especially the Commission and within the Council, initiated the first steps to fight a COVID pandemic. And of course, immediately after that, the critical two moments, and that was the adoption of the new multi-annual financial framework, but as well the EU Next Generation as a big answer to the big problem. After that, in 2022, when Putin invaded Ukraine, trying to attain a blitzkrieg, the geopolitics and security came into the focus, meaning that we had to act together, first of all, to express the solidarity and support to our Ukrainian friends, to adopt packages of sanctions against Russia, to remain united, to provide not only political, diplomatic, humanitarian, technical, economic, financial support, but also extensive military support with no precedent of such kind to Ukraine over the past year and a half. And also keep up with the pressures of social cohesion in our own countries due to the energy crisis, due to the inflationary pressures, and due to the risks that were stemming from the issues of whether we were going to ensure sufficient supply of energy sources and whether the prices of these energy products will be affordable. And when I look back, all of the two overlapping and intertwining crises, COVID and Russia's aggression against Ukraine, have almost sidelined the two critical priorities, and that was how to adapt to the climate change issues, how to diminish the negative consequences of the climate change in our societies, and also how to catch up with the trends of the fourth industrial revolution in terms of the digital transformation. And that's why this period, this is now where I would say that we are well, I would say, chartering these difficult waters better than anybody has thought. And we have managed at the European level to demonstrate incredible amount of political unity. There are few dissenting voices, but I would say they are minimal. We have managed to provide assistance to member states in fighting the economic crisis and avoiding the social crisis. We were, in my view, a little bit too slow regarding the capping of the prices of gas. Croatia was among those 15, 16 member states who was advocating for almost 9 months the European capping of prices of gas. And once this was attained, and that was in December last year, the markets reacted, the speculators reacted, the traders reacted, and as a consequence, we had a diminishment of prices of gas and ensuing diminishment of prices of electricity. In that respect, what did we do as Croatia at the national level? We had three major concerns. One was to continue fulfilling the strategic objectives that we set ourselves, notwithstanding the crisis that we were going through. And for us, that meant the continuous growth of our economy. For us, that meant higher employment and lower unemployment. And for us, it had an objective of massive infrastructural investments that were happening across Croatia over the last couple of years, with stronger international positioning, and that for Croatia meant very clearly joining the euro area, joining the Schengen area, and also joining the European Stability Mechanism, and at the same time improving our relationship with the United States by finally addressing the issue of the visa waiver, as well as the entrance to the global entry program, which is like a privileged security context between the United States and the countries to whom they actually trust. And this was all attained. So I call this policy of modern sovereignism, through which Croatia, as a young country and a young democracy, manages to better, more efficiently and faster attain its own national objectives by using, in a positive sense, not abusing, but intelligently using its strengthened international position as a member of the European Union, in particular, also, of course, as a NATO member, but now even more as a country that belongs to the euro area and the Schengen area. And therefore, when I look at the critical dates over the past couple of years, I would say that those were certainly the third week of July in 2020. So it was a week when we had the longest European Council. It was lasting about 5 days when we agreed on the EU Next Generation, meaning that the amounts of billions of euros that were pulled in order to help the European Union and the member states to address the consequences of COVID. Croatia per capita was one among the most successful countries in negotiating this EU Next Generation deal for us. It actually means 10.5 billion euros extra based on the envelope that we have within the multi-annual financial framework. And that puts Croatia certainly in the position that we can better and quicker achieve the critical investments in the areas such as the post-earthquake reconstruction, such as the energy infrastructure, such as the educational infrastructure, or the whole system of transportation or water and sewage systems that we are investing heavily in Croatia. So from that point of view, the crisis management and simultaneous attainment of our own strategic objectives was, in our view, fulfilled to the best maximum extent that was actually possible. Why is this important for the EPP and the YEPP? I think it's important that these experiences and these joint successes are actually well presented and well explained, as the French would say, in terms of the pédagogie politique, to our electorates in the context of the forthcoming European elections. Because there are two types of political parties: those who are ready and fit and proved to be able to govern for the interest of the people and their states and the European Union, if you like, and those who are more prone to constant criticizing and no clear alternative offered solutions to their countries, their nations, their states, their electorate. And this is where the strength of the EPP in terms of the future narrative is critically important. Important in particular because of the trend of the fragmentation at the European political spectrum. This is a tendency that makes governance more difficult, more complex, and sometimes creates political instability in some of the member states. Democracy is a reflection of the multitude of opinions of our citizens, but excessive fragmentation is not good for governance. That is absolutely clear, and that's why we should strengthen our own position at the next European elections to the maximum possible extent, trying to prevent those who would like to eat up part of our electorate from further right, or those who are in the center or the liberal spectrum of the electorate. That's why the EPP policy is so strongly well proved in the context of this multiple crisis should be well presented across the European continent. And in that respect, the role of youth is critically important, and your activism, which I very much welcome, and energy and enthusiasm will help us to be as successful, and I would say basically without any doubts, again, the relative winner of the European elections that will take place in June 2024. Croatia will, for this decade, focus on 4 priorities. We call them 3Ds plus E. First one is the demographic revitalization. This is the structural problem of our nation and our society, with the negative natural growth and all the policies that we are putting forward, and the financial means, especially now that we have addressed all the other critical issues, will be in focus. The second aspect of our policy is the digitalization, and our objective is to double the current number of people working in the ICT sector in Croatia, and we have already spoken about it with the key stakeholders in the sector, and we agreed that this is achievable. That's why there are many of international but also Croatian companies trying to look for young talents coming from the STEM area of education, in particular, to keep them here and make their contribution national, European, and global. And the third one, of course, is the decarbonization, where we have adopted the energy strategies of Croatia and where the renewables will play an important part. Croatia has done very well in terms of having enough supplies of fossil fuels, especially with the strategic decision of my government in the first mandate to invest in the liquefied natural gas terminal at the island of Krk, which has enabled us to stay in peace and secure when it came to gas supply. But now the investments that will be happening in the years ahead of us will be also taking into account the future role of hydrogen, future role of hydropower, future role of geothermal energy, and of course wind and solar energy as the important parts of the energy sources for Croatia in the future. The E is education. Here we will invest 1.7 billion euros in the educational infrastructure, never bigger investment in Croatia in the educational infrastructure since the Austro-Hungarian times in our country, and that's why we feel that only with adequate investments in education we can be sure that we will have young generations, even younger than you, who will, thanks to the knowledge that they will attain through the curriculum process, be strong enough in comparative terms and be more than fit enough to provide new successes for the country and for our nation. So in that respect, knowing that you have carefully listened to the State of the Union that the President of the Commission has addressed the European Parliament a few days ago, I will not repeat her priorities. I wanted to give you an angle from the country that has been governed by the EPP now for 7 years, and which will certainly continue to do so after the next European and national elections. Thank you very much.